to a special meeting of the Basalt Town Council. We're going to call this meeting to order at 6 straight up. And could we get a roll call, Pam?
Certainly. Here, Bernie Broward.
Here.
Kate Schwer.
Here.
Schindler.
Here.
Jennifer Ripple. Here. Mark Kittle.
Here.
Kathy Woodson.
Here. Thank you, Pam. Okay, our first item is council comments. Are there councilors that have comments, I guess, for items other than this one?
I do.
Yes, Mr.
I've
Clerk.
got a prepared statement I'd like to read. Based upon the email presented to us at last Tuesday's meeting regarding the pending issue before this council on the marijuana rules and regulations, I found it necessary to take the action that I'm taking at this time. Councilperson Riffle violated the Colorado Open Meetings Act and lied to fellow council members in an attempt to sway votes, as was clearly shown in the email. This is deeply disturbing behavior for an elected official, and I cannot with good conscience continue to serve on this council with someone of questionable character. It is for this reason that I ask Councilperson Riffle for her resignation, effective immediately. If she elects not to resign her current position, I feel that this will only widen the disconnect that already exists between the community and this council. And as a citizen, not as a council member, I would recommend that a recall petition be initiated at the earliest opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Are there any other council comments for items not on this agenda?
Yes, please. Go ahead, Bernie.
Well, I just wanted to thank Mark Kittle and Auden Schindler for their very cooperative work in crafting our two ballot items. And we spent 3 hours working on it together in some people have said this council isn't functional, but I think functional is a straight up definition. Are you able to debate civilly, to argue your case back and forth, to listen to the other person, and to come to some mainly close to consensus and move ahead? And I think in crafting that ballot language that we're going to vote on in November for the bond issue for the park, we saw a very functional council in which everybody had certain opinions. They didn't agree. We listened to each other. We changed our opinions, and we came up unanimously with the ballot language that we thought was the most straightforward that we could present to the voters to make a disposition of town funds to go forward with the planning process that has given us our clear choice of a park as presented by the Post and Open Space Trails Committee to us. And later discussion, they both said they were neutral about it, and I recognize that as a very reasonable position, and there's certainly arguments for and against, which we will see in this contract tonight. The reason of the contract is to present those arguments as clearly and forthrightly to the population of Basalt in their ballots so they may make a choice. And what I appreciate is them spending the time to craft the best possible ballot language, even though they right now don't feel that they want to take a position supporting it or not supporting it. And I just appreciate you're willing to work with us for the benefit of the community.
Thank you, Bernie.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bernie. Jennifer?
All right, so I would like to respond to Mark Kittle's request for resignation. I am not going to tender it, nor am I interested in it. First, I'm going to read my response to Mark Kittle's phone message that he left me on Friday, September 30th at 10:48 a.m. And I responded to him on September 30th at 2:17 p.m. So a 3-hour time period. Dear Mark, I received your voicemail today, transcribed below. I would prefer to meet with you in person to discuss your threats and concerns mentioned in your 9/30/16 voicemail with Ron Miller present. I would like to have witnesses present considering your hostile tone and intimidating messaging in a previous phone voicemail exchange. Please suggest a time and date after Ron Miller's start date of 10/6/16 for a professional civil discourse to communicate your concerns and hear my response. I strive towards a friendly, collaborative, and communicative relationship with you. I trust your intentions are with the best in heart. Sincerely, Jennifer Riffle. Having read the Aspen Times this morning and Mark Kittle's statements, since you're publicly calling me a liar and requesting my resignation, it looks like it's time for you to submit your resignation as well. You too have lied to the public and to a reporter that I did not respond to your voicemail. Excuse me, let me restate that because I do not have two in there. You have lied to the public and to a reporter that I did not respond to your voicemail. I did respond in a very timely manner and will not stand for this deceit and unprofessional hostility. My invitation to meet and talk with you regarding your concerns still stands. I'm truly concerned that as a council, we have not had an opportunity to discuss together what the accusations are. So there's no,
Come on.
Everybody, can we just show just
civility.
respect for anybody who is speaking in this room, please?
Please suggest a time preferable for you on or after 10/6/16 to meet with Ron Miller and myself. My reasoning to meet with Ron Miller present has been made clear in my initial response. I apologized. I'm not a liar. The quotes were taken out of context. Now let's move on. Are we becoming the town that's going to be played over marijuana? I hope not. This is such a small distraction in the scheme of what our service is to the town of Basalt. This pot stirring towards the ends of recall election is adult bullying at its best. To quote Michelle Obama, when someone is cruel or acts like a bully, you don't stoop to their level. No, our motto is, when they go low, we go high. The high road often feels like the world's roughest and least well-trafficked one. The rest of this statement goes to the people out there that are calling for resignation and are bullying myself and fellow council members. I kindly request that the bullying stop and a civil discourse resume. Please stop attempting manipulation via email, voicemail, Facebook, or in person. I respect everyone for the human they are, and fighting is not within my nature. As alluded to in the Aspen Times, more accusations may surface toward the end of recall, which I assume will be taken out of context and spun against my political character and those of my fellow councilors. Please keep in mind the validity and community respect of the individual or individuals who accuse. Please outreach with civil intentions to the party accused to learn the other perspective rather than take an accusation at face value. Today, I speak to be made aware of adult bullies. Since they are disrupting productivity, incurring monetary loss due to excessive conflict from situations which consume a disproportionate share of staff time, claim support, research, human resources, all of which our citizens are bearing a share of the cost and reducing morale. According to bullyingstatistics.org, bullies are not interested in working things out and are not interested in compromise. Rather, adult bullies are more interested in power and domination. They want to feel as though they are important and preferred, and they accomplish this by bringing others down. There is very little you can do to change an adult bully beyond working within the confines of laws and company regulations that are set up. The good news is that if you can document the bullying, there are legal and civil remedies for harassment, abuse, and other forms of bullying. The saddest part of this message is the most frequent advice on what to do about bullying: ignore. I'm going to reiterate from my civility speech in June. The term incivility itself is broad, referring to a wide variety of behaviors and subject to a lot of individual interpretation. Incivility can be hard to define, but is one of those things that most people say they recognize when they see it or feel it. I'm feeling it and seeing it burn, and you are all witnessing earlier. Conversely, civility is marked by individuals that understand their roles and respect the process. You got me on the process that I had too many recipients on an email. One can be effective even when working among differences. Incivility is not equal to conflict, dissent, or disagreement. It's about how conflict, dissent, or disagreement are handled. It matters because civility provides an important foundation on which to work through differences of opinion and still accomplish things. Civility is a tool for working with strongly held different views, not a way to silence or ignore them. Leaders that espouse civility can have robust debate and make better decisions. A divided government body or a divided community that uses the tactics of incivility will face significant difficulties in governing and reaching its goals. Please note, we are each responsible for our own civility. I'm not responsible for another's behavior. Now let's focus on collaboration so we can be a town that is able to function effectively and efficiently in dealing with routine business and, most importantly, community priorities. Basalt, let's reach our goals by keeping our small town culture character intact and recognize it's going to take us all to realize our potential. With everything we say and do, we're influencing, positively and or negatively, the community we care about. The ideal is to do this with consideration and intention. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, our single agenda item tonight is a council discussion of the Darnauer contract. And I will just tell you right now that we will be taking public comments after we have talked about this a little bit. And the way that this started was actually when Mike was still here, we began talking about the fact that we needed to get more communication out to the community and needed to show more transparency as a council. Because quite honestly, it's very difficult when almost everybody on the council is tied up day and night with their jobs. So we decided to start talking about that. And from the time Mike left until a couple of these consultants were secured, we actually did take some action to do that. So at this point in time, we have had enough discussion and concern about how we have been processing this particular contract that we decided to bring it out into the sunshine and have a discussion about this contract and decide how we're going to move forward. I guess my one question would be, and Tom, maybe you have a suggestion, whether we should take public comments regarding this contract first or we should have a discussion first.
Your call.
Okay, I think that I just want to say again, we're taking public comments only about the Darnauer contract, and then we are going to listen to all of you, what you have to say about that, and then we are going to have a discussion and vote on this contract. Yes, Bertie?
I think it might be more helpful if we discuss the contract first, so people
ahead.
can listen to our discussion, and
Great idea.
then we'll have more to ask about.
I agree.
So I will start, if you don't mind. So, first of all, it's really quite unusual that we would approve a consultant's contract by a council vote. Almost all of those are implicit in our budgetary process, where we budget certain amounts, and then the town manager goes out, or he designates his department heads to go out and affect the direction of council by securing the necessary consultants that will affect the policy directions that the council has given to the manager and the staff. Unusual circumstance because we had no town manager since Mike suddenly resigned. We did have a consulting manager to help us secure our interim manager, Ron Miller, and Ron will be joining us on the 6th within 2 days. And Ron, I welcome him. He's highly experienced. He's got over 40 years in municipal government. I forget, 12 or 15 was running a major Front Range city with 2,900 employees, and an expertise in finance, which is, being on the finance committee, something I'm very concerned about, the financial well-being of the community. And I look forward to working with Ron very closely in looking at the finances and moving ahead to reach our goals. So, but in the meantime, we didn't have anybody, and we have an election coming up, and we have a ballot item that the council unanimously voted to adopt. And so, to me, it's imperative that we get out our Blue Book communication and we get out an objective statement of the ballot issues so our citizenry may inform themselves with an objective, reliable source what it is that they're voting on. And so I and the mayor started looking around in haste for somebody who could carry this out. And our staff is skeletal right now. They are completely snowed under with activities, and some of them Mike would be doing, but now they have to do them all. So we contacted first Paul Anderson, who's very well known to the community as a facilitator and writer, and we discussed it with him, and we got some nice work product from him. But we soon realized this was more of a technical, almost tax writing effort that Paul is not expert in. And a name that came to us was Darnauer Group. Jeanette Darnauer is well known in the valley from Aspen down to Glenwood for working with all kinds of municipal governments, counties, and major developments in their land use and other processes. And so we met with her, we engaged in a process to define her scope and her expenses, and we've been hammering it out. In the meantime, because we have no time to waste, the election is right around the corner, we had her commence work, and we now have a clear scope of work. She has a clear billing of what the hours she's put in, of her rates, of what the exact work product she is to produce. She has already produced our main work product, which is our questions and answers, or FAQs, and a fact sheet. And that is what will show up on the Basalt website. She has worked hand in hand with our bond counsel, Paul Weiser of Denver, to make sure this is the most objective, factual information that presents information in a neutral way that all parties who may have different opinions, whether to vote for or against it, would have equal access to equal correct information. And she has been, over the last 2 weeks, in constant communication, and I've been drawn into the process just as a council advisor, and we have the finished product. So some people I know are concerned about these consultant contracts. I am one of them. I don't remember being given consultant contracts to approve, but because of the interest in the community, we thought the simplest thing is bring it forward, explain what happened, how it developed, and show what the contract is and what some of the deliverables that have already been produced and will be produced. Now, it is my understanding from the town attorney, Tom Smith, that it is not at all unusual for work to commence before the final details of the contract are negotiated and executed, and that's what has happened in this case. Some of the contracts that I was not aware of have come out of a very large general fund that's called Discretionary and Economic Development. And I assume, but Judy can correct me, that this funding for this contract is coming out of that same fund? Okay, so what I can also say is I do agree that the contract should be more transparent to me as a council member and more transparent to the public. And so I would call for a work session as soon as Ron comes on board at looking at our whole procurement and assignment of contract policy and procedures and see what we can do to improve it and make it more transparent for both us and the public. I think that's everything I have to say.
Thanks, Brian. Did you have something, Auden?
Sure, yeah. So we've been struggling without a town manager. You are all aware of that in the audience. The problem is that the way this municipal government works, town council wasn't set up to run the town. And we've had to make some important decisions like communicating with the town on our own and push that through, which was critical for this election. So that happened thanks to Jackie and Bernie. It's almost done, and this information will go out to the public. I appreciate that. It had to get done, and so we're moving forward. I wasn't happy about the process. This is a decision that should be made by the town manager, and in doing that, going forward, I think that this contract was too expensive. It wasn't local to Basalt. All we really needed here was a writer, and it's just part of the imperfection of the situation. So moving forward, I agree with you, Bernie. Let's have a procurement discussion, and let's be cheap. We could pay $50 an hour and get a good writer. I do think we are going to have to spend some money to better communicate with the community, but I'm going to support, at this point in the conversation, support this contract because we have to get this information out. We're under a very tight time frame. And then let's get this Ron Miller, this interim town manager, on board and have him making these decisions, and help him be efficient with those decisions.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Jen?
So, adding to the conversation, us as a group during our retreat, we stated that one of our priorities, or our three priorities, but two mainly, are communication, putting it out there to the community, and as well transparency. And so this fulfills those needs. Auden described it very well of how the cards are stacked that way, and one thing that I have learned coming into Town of Basalt and how our staffing is currently minimal, is that's where you do have to use the services of consultants, and there is a premium to pay for it, but that's part of the budget balancing, the give take of what the reality is of how our staffing and how our town has been structured in the most recent history. So I am in support.
I want to point out that Bernie used an excellent word, and that's our staff is skeletal, and I believe that's a very, very eloquent way of describing the current situation that we're in, and that we do need additional support right now because we are lacking a town manager that perhaps would have taken on this rather significant endeavor. And as Jen pointed out, in our council retreat, this was a big goal of the entire council, was to have greater communication with the community. And one of the deliverables from this contract is to provide content for a newsletter and start having more engaged communication with the community. And I'm so happy that we are moving forward with that. And I totally agree with the comments that Auden made as well, like $10,000, it's a big number. And it's not something that I take lightly. And I know that moving into the budget starting next week, we're gonna really examine our contracts that exist currently and in the future, and our overall budget, because as we know, we have some financial mysteries to unravel and resolve. So I support this contract and getting the information out effectively and efficiently to the public. Thank you.
Well, in light of the fact that we do have money in the discretionary fund, I think it's money well spent. I support the contract.
Well, I guess my only last comments would be that, it's been some difficult discussions, not only on council, but with our public as well. And quite honestly, some of the concerns that the public has raised, even though it could have been maybe like friendlier, like all around a dining room table or something like that, the truth is that the community has brought to light some things that we need to look at closer, okay? The communication thing, we need to look at closer. The contract issue, we need to look at that closer. And it is partly because of pressure from citizens in the community that we are looking at things closer than we ever have in the 20 years that I've been around here. So I have to thank the community members for showing up and delivering a message that was sometimes hard to hear, but that made us open our eyes and look at some things. And some things I think we are absolutely fine. We are altogether a great team. We are all, to a person, very honest. I mean, I know there's some other opinions over here, but generally we are an above-board group. We have not necessarily communicated the best we could, but we depend on our staff for that, and we are in great hopes that moving forward it will be better than it's been in the past. So we are going to take public comments. We are going to keep those public comments specific to this darn hour contract, because there's a lot of other things that I know people want to discuss, but we don't have them noticed, and so we can't talk about them. So if you have comments regarding the darn hour, yes, sir.
Well, would you take the motion? I think while we're here, we might as well adopt it.
Well, I think we need to have public comment first.
Fine,
Yeah,
that's
otherwise-
fine.
Can I just ask a procedural question?
Yeah.
Tom, can we respond to public comment? Because one of the things that's, okay. I just think that if you have thoughts and you want to respond, do it, because it's better than us sitting here stonily like a statue.
Okay,
Could I ask something, Madam Mayor?
sure.
Procedural. In a regularly scheduled meeting or in a special meeting, I harp on the same thing all the time. I think the community at large would really be more comfortable if you did the 5 things that are supposed to be done. The first page should be your roll call and your council comments and your mayor comments. And then there's one thing in there that's fairly important before an executive session where you go into your meeting, and it's called citizens' comments. And I want to know why you have shut citizen comment down, and you are being specific in telling people like me, David Schoenberger, that I can't get up and have my 3 minutes in talking to Councilwoman Riffle about what's going on. I just want to know specifically, are you shutting us down so we cannot speak about what is important in the community, or is this legal? And I want to just know from your council or from yourself whether you are running a legal meeting according to the Colorado state statutes. Because I already know the answer, and I'm going to get up and read it.
Tom, he's asking if it's legal. That's not my...
If the question is it legal to have a meeting without a public comment period, the answer is yes. With any specific item on the agenda, particularly if it's a resolution or ordinance, public comment should be taken, and in every case that I know of with this council has been taken. But it's not required that the council have a public comment period at every meeting. At every regularly scheduled meeting, the council, of course, has that on the agenda. This is a special meeting for a specific purpose, so it's not required.
I spoke with a councilman today. I was assured that citizen comment would be accepted tonight. I have the expectation that I will be standing there for 3 minutes. If you tell me I'm not allowed to do it, then I'll sit down.
I think that, well, at least what I have told people is that we would take public comment
This is
on
a
this
moral
agenda
issue.
item.
Are you going to let me
I was
speak
just
or-
going to finish my sentence,
I'm sorry,
David.
Madam Mayor.
Yeah, that we were going to take public comment on this item because that's how we advertised it. So I think we need to stick with this because that's the expectation of all the council for sure, and hopefully the people in the audience. So I'm all ears for anyone who has any comments regarding this contract.
Thank you for listening.
All of us are. Does anyone have any comments regarding this contract? Mr. Guy?
those who have been hiding under rocks, my name is Ted Guy. I would hope that I can respond to issues raised by the council as they discuss this contract. Is that correct?
Yes.
First, a question. My understanding is Jeanette Darnauer has been working for over 2 months for the town. Is that correct?
I cannot tell you the date that Jeanette started. Can you, Jeanette?
When we first talked, it was September 10th, and it was shortly after that. I don't have the exact date in my head, but it's the next week.
So a month.
No, it's about a month.
I would say a month.
Jen mentioned, and I've seen some of the notes and whatnot from your retreat, and I applaud the goals that Jen mentioned, which is communication and outreach. The problem I see is you guys aren't walking the talk. You're meeting in secret. You're having numerous discussions in violation of the open meetings law. You're discussing stuff privately. And the discussion to hire, or even the consideration of hiring someone like Jeanette or Paul Anderson, should have initiated in this room during a public meeting. It did not. So right now, based on your goals from your meeting last spring, I grade this council F. You failed to do what you said you wanted to do. You are not transparent. You are secretive. You're violating open meeting law. I've seen the emails. I've seen some of the texts. You were warned frequently that you were violating those rules. You continued to do it. Not all of you, not every time, but more than 2 councilmen communicating by text, by email, is a violation of the open meeting law. You're here to work for us. You need to do it in this room, in public, with cameras going. And you've gotten into this thing. I think of you as the Gang of 4 that used to run communist China. You are as secretive as they were, and you need to change.
I know you're partly talking about the contract, but I would like to be able, for any of us to address questions you have about the contract, and you did have some statements about the contract, but if you could keep it narrow, because we've told other people who have asked to go off subject that we would like to do that at a regular meeting.
Again, I'm referring to comments that were made by the council in discussing this contract. So, the horse is out of the barn. You've incurred all this money secretly, without notice to the public. I understand that there was an urgency, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't have been done at your very next meeting, or frankly, before you even picked up the phone to call someone, you should have talked about it in a public meeting. It's too late now. It's not her fault. She deserves to be paid. But it's wrong. Thank you.
Ted, I just want a couple quick comments. It's not clear to me that if we're gonna hire a communication consultant, that we have to vet that publicly. I mean, we could give you 40 contracts Mike Scanlon signed that weren't vetted. You'd freeze town government if that were the...
Again, I'm not asking you to bring every contract here, but if you think you need to hire, go out and spend some money to hire somebody, talk about it.
Yeah.
Talk about it in public. Don't
Yeah.
do it amongst yourselves.
So anyway, I think in this case, it could and should be made by the town manager, and that person's responsibility is be fiscally prudent. So,
Again.
and just a
Sorry.
couple other things. I think that we really, really are as a council making an effort not to meet in executive session. And the last executive session we had, Ron Miller asked us to do it, and we were discussing his contract. And so we're trying to do that and come out of the meeting and say, here's what happened. So I think you will see, and you should be seeing, less actual executive session in terms of violation of open, fingers crossed, okay, violation of open meeting laws. I think people have got the message on that too. And I don't think all of that was intentional, but I think you're gonna see none of. And yes, council people one-on-one are gonna be speaking to each other because that's how you get stuff done. But I think you've been heard. And hey, I wasn't happy with this contract either.
No, I heard that.
So we're gonna move on after this, get it out, and I just want you to know, we heard you.
Transparency means making decisions, asking your town manager, or even okaying your town manager to go out and get somebody. That's a discussion that really ought to happen at this table in an open meeting. Thank you.
Just on some of that issue of open meetings and communication that isn't appropriate, one of the things that Jen brought to this council, and I remember if it was before or after the retreat, was asking that we bring in the Department of Local Affairs to do a brief training with us on all the things that municipal and county governments really should know already. Because the truth is, Tom Smith did spend some time with the freshmen elected. I wasn't there, so I don't know what all was covered, but I know this is not something you learn in a day. I mean, I've been here on and off for 20 years, and I make mistakes, and I try to fess up when I make mistakes. I clearly had an illegal communication about the Willits proposal, and you remember it, it was in the paper. And I said, I screwed up. I've got a lot of service under my belt. I have no alibi for that. So all I'm saying is, it is a great reminder to come in once a year, once every other year, and get some reminders on the really specifics of things that are not common sense to somebody who walks in off the street as an elected official. Not necessarily common sense, and I am open for that, and Jen suggested it a while ago, and I would be more than willing to talk to council about considering that again, because clearly we are not perfect, and a reminder is in order on some things. Yes, sir.
My name is David Schoenberger. I'm happy to see you all. Madam Mayor, the difference with your open meetings violation was that the community accepted your apology because you did not lie 8 times in the same email. And we're proud of that with you, and we're proud of the fact as a community that you're not a part of what's going on. And we look to you for your leadership. Being on point, I don't have a problem in the sense of a Dornauer contract. I do have a problem with something that I'm going to leave Tom Smith, because I like to leave him facts. It's called the Fair Campaign Practices Act. I'm going to read it. It's in the Colorado Constitution. Prohibited uses of government money and resources. The FCPA prohibits a government from expending any public monies from any source to urge electors to vote for any statewide ballot issue, local ballot issue, referred issue, measure, or measure for the recall of any officer. Therefore, in most cases, the employees and officials of a government may not use any government money or resources to support a candidate's campaign or attempt to convince voters to vote for or against an elected question, including questions that have been placed on the ballot by a government itself. I think that's pretty clear.
The council's been briefed in writing on this issue.
Not by someone competent, Tom.
Oh, thank you very much, David.
Civility.
Thank you very much.
It's on,
Civility, please.
someone needs to say it. The credibility of this council rests over here. The entire community will not believe a word that you're saying because you're all complicit with a liar. These things that were said before, it's 5th grade. You people need to
David?
take the high road.
Can I ask, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
In looking at the contract, okay, it is clear that what's being done is the community is being educated to vote for the bond. It's clear. Searching for and reading relevant Basalt newspaper clips and letters to the editor to get the latest on the Arts Center and Pan and Fork and to understand opponents' arguments against the bond issue. There are so many layers of this being wrong. The other layer, Auden, proper procedure. Town manager controls it. There's something called an RFP. An RFP goes out. We just don't call Paul and who we want. We put it out there so that maybe Mark Kaczynski would like that work. Maybe his proposal would be the one that the community would want to see. But I don't agree with it. And I'm going to direct it to all of you. I will get up here every single meeting and expose. I could read an email that this young woman wrote to Katie directly, Carbon to all of you, about the Roaring Fork Conservancy, that it would turn the community inside out. And it will be read. It's the lies and the deceit. Bernie, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Bernie. I'd love to be able to talk to you civilly. I'm over it. I will stand up here and tell the truth in every single meeting. The reason that the community is mad because she communicated in an open meetings violation to 2 people, it's because she told 10 direct lies, even about the chief of police. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Can I just make a couple of comments? Let's see. First of all, Bernie and I have worked pretty closely with Jeanette and Judy and Susan, and I've kind of been on the outskirts because I've been really busy, as a lot of us are. But we have a bond counsel who, they're attorneys, is my understanding, and they have gone through every single word of every piece of information that Jeanette and staff have worked on, and to the point where I'm kind of like, let's get this information out to people, but it was like scrubbed and re-scrubbed to make sure there was nothing, even the slightest bit, supporting a campaign. So when you see the frequently asked questions, I hope you will believe that those questions that were put in there and those answers that are in there are neutral, and we are even required to produce opposition comments in this document, which we have done. So on that note, and then as far as the RFP question, David, I think that it's been stated pretty clearly that we indeed are going to look at how we do things with the money. I think RFPs have not been generally used for smaller contracts, most definitely for an underpass, but I think that has not necessarily been done, and maybe that is appropriate. And I think we're just going to reinvent this, how we process procurement, how we process procurement across the board. So I think all of us are listening. I mean, we are going to address these things. We just have been unable to without somebody here to help us. So, I mean, Judy has been great help, but Judy is loaded down already. So I don't know if I answered all of the specific questions that David threw out regarding this contract or not, but are there others?
Hi, guys. We're starting to receive some emails and texts from Cora, and I sent them to Autumn and Mark Kittle, and I just wanted to read one that we received.
Can I stop you right here for a second?
Sure.
I know you weren't here at the beginning.
I wasn't.
Where we were specifically saying that we noticed this meeting as a one-subject meeting about Jeanette Darnauer's contract only. So we are trying to ask people to stay on that note, and that we will be talking about these other issues when they're noticed on the agenda. But so right now we're limiting to just comments or questions regarding her contract.
But not about Ms. Riffle.
No.
When do we get to?
Yeah.
We will have at the next regularly scheduled meeting, and I don't know when that is.
We'll address all this again the 18th.
Yes.
She's here, let her talk. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but we're not going to.
Protect your own.
You got to talk about it, I can't wait.
Anybody else have any discussion, questions, or comments regarding Jeanette's contract? Yeah, Mark? Please keep it to the contract.
Yes. I just wanted to say, I think it's a great idea. First is, the whole thing about the darn hour contract. I don't know Jeanette personally, but I think that the information and the accuracy of information is something that I really applaud. Making an effort to put out the good information, and I will say, part of the problem that we have here is that we have certain little forums. Mr. Schoenberger mentioned the Fair Campaign Practice Act, and I'm totally with him. But these rules have to be applied across the board, and I think that it's fantastic that and I'm just going to mention, I was disallowed from being on the Basalt Chamber website prior to the election. My positions were in opposition to the main group. And I'm just saying, I've requested to become back on and I can't. So when we look at the communications in this town, in the contributions of how and I've been threatened 2 times too, okay? I've been threatened 2 times to shut up, okay?
Mark,
And I'm
can we-
saying,
can we
I am
keep
just saying that I think it's fabulous, that, and I wholly support it. And I think you all are doing, you're going in the right direction. It's a tough job. You get yelled at, and I'm sorry for that, but thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks.
Yes, sir. Rick, I don't know if you were here either at the beginning. Okay, thank you.
Rick Stevens. In the past, when it came to scheduling consultants, contracting for consultants, defining the scope of work for consultants, there was generally an open conversation about what the town needed, whether it was river engineering, civil engineering, parks and landscape architecture help with consultants such as DHM, McLaughlin Water, on and on and on. And the practice was, and I think you've gotten away from that, and I think it's well documented that you have moved away from that. There was a proposal brought to the council that we had a scope of work that we wanted to let out to the whatever expertise we were trying to hire, including legal and people like Ellers. And it was backed up by a resolution, and the resolution was approved by council. And we approved many, 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 many resolutions. And it got to a place where individuals on the past council didn't want to use resolutions anymore to direct staff to go out and contract for these services. I'm not sure what your comment was about the number of contracts that Mike signed. He does have authority as town manager, as any town manager does, to go out and hire what we need to fill these gaps that apparently exist. We also have a budget hearing every year where capital improvements are discussed, raises are discussed. We even go so far as to compare salaries of our town managers and staff to other municipalities, and we develop resolutions to approve those salaries. This has all been done very professionally and very on time, and not necessarily the way it's been managed the last couple of months. I totally agree that the community needs to find a way to interact with council and develop a better relationship. There was I don't think this is coming out of sour grapes either, by the way. This is coming from people's hearts. It's got nothing to do with who got beat by what number of votes. And we need to stop bringing that up. But I really do encourage you, if you're going to create a new process, that you go through a process that we use everywhere in business that says, what do we need? What's the scope? Who is the audience we're targeting for that work to be done? Competitive bid process and clarity. It's really easy. And at the end of the day, you don't have to sit up here and take criticism from the general public about the way you're doing business. And I think process is a very important thing. You know, a lot of people are outcome oriented. We got into a bit of a panic. Mike Scanlon leaves. And, you know, we stopgapped it, but we could have done a better job stopgapping it. So look at what we've done in the past. I don't think we've ever done anything frivolous or arbitrary as far as hiring people or going out to bid on anything. And I think in the case of this new contract that you're executing tonight, that, you know, you should make it known what it is, because people are concerned that it's just going to be a way to try to get the bond passed. And if it looks like that and smells like that, then that's what's going to happen. So anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Rick. And just once again, just to reiterate, I think that everybody on this council understands that we need to take a look at procurement. Hi. Yeah, Laura.
Hi, I'm Laura Clayson, and I just really want to implore you all. Obviously, the rift in the community is very wide. And I think if you want this to be effective and you want to make steps towards repairing that, please be careful with what you put out. Please make sure that the questions from the opposition are from the opposition and are equal to the ones that you're, from the proponents. I just beg you to show everybody that you're going to do it right this time. Thank you.
Laura.
And I will take a second, Laura, and bring up a very good point that I want to reply to, and that is, in speaking with our bond counsel, Paul Weiser, he gets paid for doing the writing. Whether this thing passes or not, he's a legal expert, so he doesn't have any horse in this vote. And he has counseled us with all his wisdom and has weighed both sides for and against the issue as carefully as he could, and he has micromanaged Jeanette in coming up with the language for that FAQ and the for and against positions. Knowing human beings, they're going to read it and they're going to feel somehow their side was slighted. All I can say is we've done backflips with our professional counsel to make sure this is the most objective information, and so that if there is misinformation out there, it's not going to come from the council. And I appreciate your concern.
Thank you. And yeah, even as a novice, even listening to the bond counsel, I felt it was a very one-sided proposition because he was helping you write something that I did not personally agree with. So it is how you hear it and where you're coming from. So, even that seemed unbiased to me, or biased.
Or biased.
Excuse me, yes.
Thanks,
Thank
Laura.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Anyone else? We're running out of people. Okay, if council has any, I know we commented pretty heavily at the beginning. If
I'm ready to make a motion.
I'm ready to hear it.
Well, first of all, I want to thank all the citizens who appeared before us and made comments directly about this contract. I thought they were, quite thoughtful and helpful for us to consider in not only this, but future contract considerations. And having heard thorough comment by council and the public, I would like to move, Mayor, that the town council approve the Darnauer contract as presented. Are there any amendments to it, or is it full and complete?
I think you have the amendments on the draft in front of you. I made a couple of minor amendments. One, to cover the fact that there's no right to automatic renewal or extension after the period of the contract expires, and second,
to refer to the fact that in the confidentiality provision that the Colorado Opens Record Act may control what happens with information generated in the communications between Jeanette and council.
I move that we adopt this contract before us with the amendments that the town attorney, Tom Smith, has just enumerated.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, council, for your very thoughtful comments and the time you've taken to respond to citizens. I appreciate it.
Motion to adjourn.
Done.
Second.
Did you guys vote?
We don't have to.
What?
Oh, I didn't hear a vote.
We did.
I didn't.
Always yes.